So I have heard some people say that the situation in Springfield is going swimmingly. I've even heard some very optimistic people say that it is going ideally, considering the circumstances around the country. And plus or minus about a dozen protesters having a rifle pointed at them by a cop from on top of an armored mine-resistant vehicle that I know for a fact the Springfield Police Department has no need for. Yeah. Oh, that, and a guy was arrested for trying and failing to spray paint Fuck 12 on the police department, the little sign that they have outside of their building, which, I'm not even mad. Good for him. Good for... we need more of that. But yeah. Springfield has been not quiet, but peaceful. The night after the Minneapolis Police Department burned down, the 3rd Precinct, which, don't let anyone minimize that. Don't let anyone claim that it was something that was done by outside agitators or was something that was more harmful than beneficial. No. I was watching that Unicorn Riot video live. It was the community that was picketing that place, and it was the community that chose to burn it down because they had a grudge. And it was after they burned it down that things started changing. So they did difficult work, and they did good work, and the people of Minneapolis deserve credit for that. I veered off topic. Springfield. The Saturday before last, I want to say it was the 30th, we had 2 demonstrations. One that was organized by local Black Lives Matter advocates, and another one that happened almost entirely spontaneously that night. The first one was a car procession. Something like 9,000 people showed up in 3,000 cars, at least. That's what the people who were marshalling the event were estimating. Then, the next one, you had like 500 people on foot throughout the night, and another 150 cars, at least. There are videos of both of these things, and I'll try and find them and leave them in the description, but I don't have any official counts, because, especially the second one, it was entirely spontaneous. People heard that other people were getting together, and they got together, and more people got together. But I want to emphasize that it hasn't been quiet in Springfield. People have been organizing and agitating, and every day over at the city center, the Capitol building, there are people there talking about what their problems are and potentially how to fix it. There's a new organization that's formed here in Springfield, Education and Action Together, I believe it is, or EAT, because people are hungry. I thought it was cute. They're going to start working on doing things in not just the community in Springfield, but at least the community for the greater surrounding area. I'm not entirely sure what their plans are as of now, but I know a handful of the people who have helped organize it, and I'm behind them 110%. We also had something really impressive happen, or I think is really impressive. We had a bunch of people, a bunch of officials, city officials, state officials, and even a federal official, and Dick Durbin, came down to one of our protests and came to speak. This is important because, Trump decided to declare anyone who protests fascism as an enemy of the state. And I actually had an entire script written out about how leadership means advocating for the people, and how any bugaloo can just get elected through luck or through incompetence. But I'm frustrated, and I'm very glad that I don't need that script. The people of Springfield have showed leadership, for the most part. I haven't seen any statement from the heads of the police union yet, but that would be unusual in any case. And on a national level, the protests are becoming legitimate. They're becoming a movement, just a spontaneous movement of all kinds of people all across the country, in almost every part of the country. These protests they're not just about the murder of George Floyd anymore, or any individual person, or even any group of people. There's a broader understanding now, or at least the impression I get from watching and reading and listening to people, is that there is a broader understanding now that the police have too much power, and that power needs to be dialed back. And people are listening to that. People in positions of power are at least listening to that, even if they don't seem to be willing to do anything about it. There are bills that are being proposed in the Senate and in the House. There's a specific one that Nancy Pelosi put forward called the Police Accountability Act, I think it is, and there's another one that Dick Durbin talked about last Sunday that had to do with removing qualified immunity. As long as Mitch McConnell is the Speaker of the Senate, I wouldn't expect either of those to go anywhere, because, or at least the police who are doing violence, are Trump's goons, and he knows that, and he's spoken to them directly through his words and his actions. You have the idea that defunding the police, which is not radical, it is becoming a more legitimate idea. The idea of abolishing the police entirely is becoming a more mainstream idea, in that there are people that are talking about how wacky an idea it is, mainstream political figures at least. People got mad, and for once, people in power listened to that anger. I'm not unhappy that it took unprecedented levels of violence to get people to listen, but I'm not unhappy because people are listening now. And things are winding down, right? I mean, things are getting done, people are being arrested, and fucking Seattle has an autonomous zone now. So what happens next? I said before that it seems like there's a movement, right? A movement across all 50 states to curb the ability of the police to do violence, but that movement, and a lot of other movements, can die very easily. And I want to talk about how we keep the momentum going. What that mostly comes down to is we have to keep each other in check. We have to poke and prod at each other. If you're able to go out, like I am, and it's okay if you can't, then find people in your community who are organizers, who are activists, who are agitators, and ask them, hey, when's the next thing planned? And maybe more important than that, ask them, hey, what are we doing at this next thing? Is this like a rally? Are we bringing attention to something? Are we making proposals or demands? Is this a march? Are we remembering someone or something? What kind of sign do I need to bring? Stuff like that. These movements, the kind of movement that we're seeing now, is entirely dependent on people coming out in force. And what we have seen is that when people witness the things that are being complained about, the things that are being demanded with their own eyes, when they see police arresting journalists, shooting people in the face with rubber bullets, which are meant to bounce off the ground and hit people's legs. When they see police officers brutalizing elderly people for no good reason. When people see things with their own eyes, it compels them. And this is something that I've said in the past, too. I had that video about white working class invalidation that I said that it's my experience that when people see the things that people who aren't them have been complaining about for decades, for almost a century, their tune changes really quick. And we have to understand that all these people that came out, they still want change because their experiences have not changed. It's just that a lot of people, especially a lot of people who are new to trying to work to get things done, don't know what to do. So, people like me, who are more experienced, have to kind of show them how things are done. If you want to do organizing, I would suggest you... It's gonna sound ridiculous, but I would suggest you use Facebook, because fucking everybody uses Facebook. Especially the kind of people that you're going to try to reach out to. All of the rallies and shit that I've been to over the past couple of weeks, they were organized through Facebook. Or at least I was made aware of them through Facebook. And yeah, I know that Facebook is a terrible company, and I know that they're helping the Trump campaign, but, like, that doesn't mean that it's not useful. Another thing is to keep the things that you want to do simple. If you want to do a rally, do a rally. A rally is where you have a bunch of people get together and have a handful of speakers. That's classic. You're informing people. Sometimes during a rally you can suggest proposals like defunding the police or abolishing the police or other kinds of legislative changes. You can have a march. Marches are usually done in remembrance of something. There's actually an entire trail out here in Springfield that follows the progress of the 1908 race riots that happened in Springfield. And people go through that march every year. You could decide to march a memorial or something. Not just the death of George Floyd, not just protesting the death of George Floyd, but some other person who died needlessly at the hands of the police, or a local thing. But that's something that you could do. You could get together and harass a local elected official. I use the word harass, but I don't mean literally harass. You could go to their offices, or you could go to a local city council building, or you could go to a local police station and demand changes be made. You'd have to decide what those changes were beforehand, but that's absolutely something that you can do. The thing that needs to be understood about organizing is that you need to keep organizing simple. Come here and listen. We're going to march here, and we're going to get together here, and we're going to march over there. We're going to go here, and we're going to pester this person until they leave and or cry. And that's not necessarily because people are stupid. I think it's always when people have an instinct to think when you say you need to keep things simple, it's because people won't understand it otherwise. It's not about understanding. It's about the kinds of people who are coming to these things now are people who are excited, they are agitated, and they are mostly directionless. Directionless in the sense that they don't know what to do. They just know that they need to do something. And what you are wanting to do is give them some direction. But if you give them too much direction, they're going to veer off course because they're going to try and do their own thing. The more concrete a direction is, the more room people have to maybe do their own thing. Like, if you're just shouting at this guy, then the people can shout whatever the fuck they want. They can shout slogans, or they can shout, "No, wait, you're wrong about this, and I have information in a binder." There was a guy at the Rodney Davis thing who had a binder full of information about him. Start doing that. People aren't stupid. I've never believed that people are stupid. I don't believe in stupid people. But I do believe that there are people who are either uneducated or uninformed. And the first, most vital part of getting done the things that we need to get done is directing and informing people. And what those directions are and what that information is isn't anything that's set in stone. The things we do in different communities are going to be different because different communities have different needs. I said that the protests and demonstrations and rallies and marches here in Springfield have been entirely peaceful because the police have been cooperating with the protests, have chosen not to interfere. And that's good. I'm glad that that's how it's been. I love this city, and I would hate to see it go up in flames, and it brings a great deal of relief and a little bit of joy to me that it didn't. But in other places where we have seen violence, especially violence by the police, I'm not going to tell those people that they're doing the thing wrong, because I don't know that community, I don't know those people, and I believe that those people know what is best for their community. In every case, yes. That's another important thing, too. Like, you have to understand what your community needs. And if you're new to this going out and doing demonstrating thing, then you might not know that. And that doesn't make you a bad person. It's not because you're not empathetic. It's just because you need to be aware of your community in a broader context before you can know what your community needs. Our society atomizes people so much. It reduces them to the level of the individual so much that people don't even think of themselves as being part of, like, geographic communities. They think of their communities as being, oh, I'm a gamer. Oh, I'm a fan of this series of novels. I'm a member of the community that writes about this TV show or this video game. And that makes it a lot easier to separate different groups, to create dissent in groups, or dysfunction in different groups. Because you can suggest that one group has it out for you, one group in your community. You can... far-right figures are very, very good at weaponizing the differences between geographical communities. Tucker Carlson, just a few days ago, was talking about how the black people are coming for the white people, and how every white person needs to be afraid, which... fucking ridiculous. You need to know who the people in your community are. That's one of the reasons that people keep getting together up at the square at the Capitol. It's so that they can get to know one another and get to know what the needs of the community are. I've lived in Springfield for 10 years. I've been doing activism in the community, reaching out to different people in the community and talking to them and asking them what they need for about as long as that, and so I have some idea of what people want. Like, I would go so far as to say that there isn't any need or desire for major change here in Springfield, and all the demonstrations that we've had were demonstrations in solidarity with other more perilous demonstrations. Trying to add legitimacy to those demonstrations by saying, hey, we think this is fucked up too. That doesn't necessarily mean that it wouldn't be an opportune moment to change things. I have ideas for proposals I have a fucking... Is it over here? I have a notebook I've been writing things down in, but neither here nor there. You can't even begin to change things unless you have some idea of what your community wants and how they came to the consensus that that's what they want. A handful of stories about one thing or another can change people's minds radically. Like I say that no one in Springfield wants any kind of major change, but if like half a dozen people came forward with stories about this officer, about one individual officer, beating the crap out of them for having a busted taillight that he busted out, then that would change really quick. Because the people of Springfield are good people and they care about one another. They love this city. It's possible to change people's minds. Yes, that's always something that's possible, but you have to understand how to do that. And if you're doing that, I would beg you to keep the interests of your community in mind. Because those are the people that have to come first. It's not about you and, you scoring political victories. It's about keeping your community safe and healthy. At least as much as it is possible to do. The most important thing, I think, is to keep one another accountable. It's not just a matter of, getting together and messaging each other and saying, hey, when are we doing the thing? When are we doing the thing? You've got to keep at it. These movements require people. And the people want to go out, and they want to see change. But I'm seeing a lot of people that don't know how that change would be done, or what that change might even be. There has to be... that accountability goes both ways. The organizers need to expect people to show up. And the people who show up need to expect the organizers to schedule things and to have proposals for whatever they're doing. That's the harder part. That's maybe shouldering an unfair burden on a handful of people. But my experience is that the people who decide to become organizers are people who are most of the time well suited for that task. Not always. You do have your occasional piece of shit. But it takes a specific kind of motivation, a specific kind of humanistic motivation, a specific kind of drive and desire to do that. I don't know if you have that, but if you do, if you have it, you know it. And if you have it, I would implore you to use it. You can always... My DMs are open on Twitter. You can always message me and Discord. If I'm ever on Discord, my private messages are open on Discord. You can always message me and ask for help, and I'll give you as much advice as I have, within reason. I hope I don't have to go out of reason. I hope I don't have to explain what within reason means, but yeah. We're not done. This thing that is happening, this moment in history, is not over. It is not over until something has been done or something has been tried and failed. Historically, things... It's not even as simple as trying and failing. I have half of a script for a video related to the race riots, sort of, about how the Civil Rights Act was originally a compromise to an anti-lynching bill that they tried to pass for 30 years. I don't know if it's related to the anti-lynching bill that the shitty representatives, the shitty senators from Kentucky, which I'm going to heretofore refer to as the lynching state, Kentucky, the lynching state, are holding up. But even compromise can get things done, ideally. Compromise is not a bad word. You need to have realistic expectations, which is why it's important to understand your community. Why it's important to understand what people want and what they need, where they're at. And that's why it's important to keep things going. Because nothing ever got done until it got done. The next video I'm planning on making is, I have a script for, it's talking about the differences between defunding the police, between doing legislative action, and what disbanding the police. What the differences are and how you would go about doing those things. And, like, what effects those things would have. And when they're appropriate, too. After that, I had a lot of plans, things that I'd been working on for a long time. I have, like, 6 scripts written. But there's a revolution happening. And everything gets put on hold until the revolution is over. So yeah, stay safe, don't act alone, and take care of yourselves, alright? I don't know if you can hear that beeping, but that's the air conditioner upstairs. It's very, very old. I'll try to get it out in the edit.